Today we are going to make a textured clay fish. I'm going to start by using a slab of clay that has been pre-cut. I'm going to use a cup to trace a circle. I'm going to use a paper clip to carve through the clay. Make sure you push all the way through. Remove the excess clay, but don't smush it up too much. We want to keep it as scraps so we can use it for our fins later. I'm going to look at my piece of clay and say, hey, you know what? This is kind of rough and sloppy looking. I'm going to use some water and smooth it out. I'm going to make my clay look nice and smooth so my artwork has good craftsmanship. I'm going to use that water all the way around the clay on both sides. Then I'm going to use a texture roller and I'm going to apply a pattern to the clay. Now you can do the same pattern on top of the whole thing, or you can mix it up and do two different patterns. It's your choice. I am now going to pick up my piece of clay and flip it over. The other side will be the inside of the fish. On half of the circle, I am going to apply some score marks. I just draw little X's right around the outside of the circle. That looks good. Then I'm going to apply some water to those X's. Smooth it in a little bit. Make sure you get enough on there, and you're going to carefully pick it up, and where the X's are, that's where you're going to join the clay together. You're going to squeeze it and join it together. Keep the other side open for the mouth. So pinch the back of it and the top of it, but be careful not to pinch away your texture design. Just pinch it a little bit so it holds together. Now I'm ready to move on to my fins. I'm going to start with a piece of clay that's nice and long, one of the corner pieces, and I'm going to turn this into my top fin. It's about the right length, so I'm going to maybe trim it up just a little bit. I'm going to cut it into a shape that I want. I prefer to create my own shape for my fin, not just keep what it is. So I'm going to carve out a shape using my paper clip, and that looks good. It's a little long in the front and a little long in the back, so I'm going to tear off just a tiny piece of clay, set it to the side. Then I'm also going to apply texture to this with one of the texture rollers. I'm going to put the texture on both sides. Doesn't have to be perfect, just do the best you can, just to give it a little bit of texture. Then I'm going to put those score marks again across the top of the fish where the seam was, where the X's join together, and then on the bottom of the top fin so that way it'll stick to the fish. Remember, X marks the spot. If you don't put the X's, your fish will fall apart. So now I'm going to just put my finger on the inside of the fish to kind of support the weight if you need to. And I'm going to pinch it together and kind of smooth it just a little bit on the seam so that way it holds together nicely. But try not to smooth it too much so you don't erase your texture. You want to pinch it just a little bit so it holds it together, but you don't want to smooth it too much and get rid of that texture. That looks good. I'm going to work on the back side there in just a minute. I'm going to get another piece of clay and I'm going to make my back fin for my fish. Right there, that looks good. Again, I'm going to use the paper clip to cut the shape, and then I'm going to add some texture to it with a texture roller. I flattened out the bottom of it so I can put some score marks on it and attach it to the back side of the fish. Make sure you put score marks also on the back of the fish. If you need to kind of flatten out that space a little bit, you can. Just be careful again that you don't smush away your texture as you're doing this. And then I'm going to use a little bit of water and I'm going to attach it on there. Now to make sure the fin doesn't fall off, I'm going to smooth the bottom side of the clay onto the fin just a little bit to kind of help seal it into place. And you can do this all the way around that back fin if you need to seal it so it doesn't fall off. Then I'm going to use the extra clay that I have. I'm going to roll a long coil. This is going to be the lips for the mouth of the fish. You roll out a long coil and then you wrap it around the face. That looks good. It's a little long, but I want to keep it that way just in case I need a little extra. I'm going to score it, and I'm going to score the coil, and then I'm going to attach the coil to the opening on the front of the fish, and these will be the fish lips. That looks good. Apply a little bit of water and stick it on there. And then you can trim it up and get rid of any extra that you don't need. Again, you can also press it on there and smooth it together so that way they don't fall off. You don't want your fish to lose his lips, so make sure you push them on there all the way and smooth them together. Again, being careful not to smooth away your texture because you don't want to lose that because we are making a texture fish. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the side fins. I take a piece of clay, I squish it into kind of like a teardrop shape. One side a little pointier, one side a little wider. And then again, I'm going to apply the texture to it. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to score and slip it onto my fish, put the X's, a little bit of water, squish it on there to make sure it doesn't fall off. Again, you can seal the seam if you want to by squishing the clay down together. I'm going to make another one for the other side. It's got 2 fins on the side, 1 on each side. Then I'm going to roll 2 spheres to make the eyeballs. I'm going to add the X's to them and X on the clay fish where I want the eyeball to go. As you are attaching the fins and the eyeballs, you may need to put 1 or 2 fingers on the inside of the body of the fish to support the clay so it doesn't collapse in on itself. Use the eraser end to poke the eyeball. Do the same on the other side. Once I have done that on both sides, I can go ahead and I can check my fish to make sure he's good, and I can start the cleanup process. I'm going to make sure all my materials get put away, all my extra clay gets recycled, and my name goes on my fish.